Hi there and welcome back to The Rustic Wife. I'm Alana. So today I'm back in the kitchen. I am making something for Christmas. Yesterday I made Christmas cookies and today I am making mincemeat. Now mincemeat is, if you don't know what it is, it's kind of a traditional thing in Britain. It is kind of a, I don't know, there's molasses in it, there are raisins and currants, and there's beef suet and candied peel. It's not for everybody, but like I said, it is a traditional thing, and I don't love it, but I love making it. My dad used to love it, my Uncle Lauren loved it, my husband and my father-in-law, they still love the tarts that we make, and it's not Christmas unless we have mincemeat. So I am making the recipe out of this Laura Secord cookbook. It's a Canadian cookbook and it's one of my favorites. So I'm going to show you how I make it. So I've got the ingredients all measured out here. I have about 6 cups of shredded apple. I just used what I had in the fridge. I had a couple of Royal Gala and some Macintosh. They've gone brown because I just shredded them about 15 minutes ago, but that's okay. Then I have 2 cups of raisins. These are Thompson raisins. I have 8 ounces of candied peel, 2 cups of currants. I have 2 cups of granulated sugar. I have 2 cups of brown sugar. I also have 3/4 of a cup of apple cider vinegar, 2/3 of a cup molasses, 1.5 teaspoons of salt, and then the spices are 2 teaspoons of cloves, 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, and 2 teaspoons of nutmeg. And then I have 2 cups of chopped up beef suet. And I did have to put this in the food processor because it was shredded. Now you get this in the freezer section, maybe in one of those dump bins at the grocery store by the meat. And it used to come in a kind of more of like a powdered, ground to a fine powder, and now it just comes shredded, but that's okay. I just put it into my food processor. And the last ingredient, I have some brandy. I could have put this into another container, but I wanted to show off my crystal decanter here. So it calls for a cup of brandy, but I only usually put about 1/2 cup of brandy, but it's up to you, whatever you want to do. So I'm using this stock pot here. I have a bigger saucepan, but I just want to make sure nothing boils over, so I'm going to use a stock pot. I have my stove top set to about number 3, and I'm just going to put all the ingredients except the brandy into this pot. It's really kind of simple. Once you have everything measured out, it's basically just dumping everything in. So that was 2 cups of beef suet. I got 2 cups of brown sugar, 2 cups of granulated sugar, 3/4 of a cup of apple cider vinegar, 2/3 of a cup of molasses. So this mincemeat, you can make it into tarts, you can put it into a pie. My dad always used to love Eccles cakes, or Ecclestones as he called them, and that was like a mincemeat type of filling in puff pastry, and that's what I'm going to do today. I will make some tarts later on though. And then we have 2 cups of currants, 2 cups of raisins, 8 ounces of mixed peel, and about 6 cups of shredded apple. So that was about 6 to 7. I think I used 6 apples, but you can use 6 or 7 apples depending on the size. And 1.5 teaspoons of salt. Oh, my salt's stuck in there. And 2 teaspoons each of nutmeg, cloves, and cinnamon. So there you go. I'm just going to mix it all up here. I'm going to get a better spoon though. Yeah, this little spatula was useless. Just going to mix all of this together. So that is what it looks like so far, but we're going to let this come to a boil and boil it for about 10 or 15 minutes, and then we'll add in the brandy. So I still have my stove top set to number 3, and I'm just going to give this a stir here. I'm going to put the timer, now that it's come to a boil, I'm going to put the timer for about 10 minutes. And we'll just keep stirring it occasionally. Again, you don't want the bottom to scorch. So I actually did turn that down to number 2 because it's simmering nicely on the stove top and I don't want it to scorch. This recipe makes about 6 pints, and I actually fill mine to about just to the shoulder, and I store mine in the freezer. It stores really well in the freezer. I had one jar from last year, and I'm going to be making that, or using this today to make those Eccles cakes. I don't know if that is the traditional filling for an Eccles cake, but that's what I think it is anyway. Anyway, if you're going to keep these, if you want to seal these, you're going to have to pressure can them because there is suet in it. That's animal fat. And some recipes call for meat. So either way, you're going to have to pressure can them to keep them shelf stable. But I just stick them in the freezer and they do really well. So that's that. There's just a couple minutes left and I'm going to get the brandy poured out. So like I said, the recipe calls for 1 cup. But as my husband says, he doesn't like the mincemeat too boozy tasting. So I've got about a half a cup of brandy and we're going to pour that in once my timer goes off. Turn that heat off. I'm going to stir in the brandy. Okay, so that's done. I'm going to remove it from the heat. So I fill the jar up to just about the shoulder because if I'm going to put it in the freezer, I don't want it to expand and crack the jar. So I just fill it to about there. I am going to leave the lid off right now just because it's so hot. But once they cool down, I will put the lid on and store them in the freezer. So there are my jars of mincemeat, and I lied. They made just a little over 4.5 pints instead of 6. I thought I remembered them making 6, but I guess not. Anyway, you can cut this recipe in half if you want, because I think one of these pints will make about a dozen tarts, 2 of these for a pie. But like I said, I like to keep mine in the freezer and then you can just pull them out and use them at a moment's notice. So if you do want to pressure can these, make sure you have, you've left 1-inch headspace. And for a dial gauge, it should be 11 pounds of pressure, 10 pounds for a weighted gauge. But make sure you adjust that depending on your altitude. And I think it's about 90 minutes. Double check on that, but I think it's about 90 minutes for pints and quarts for the processing time. So if you are going to pressure can, or if you are going to can it, it has to be pressure canned, like I said, because of the suet in there. And some people do add meat, but there's meat and or animal fat in there. But that's why I freeze it. It's just easier. So normally for mincemeat tarts, I use homemade pastry, and I can leave a link below for that recipe. But today I'm just, that was my oven preheating to 400 for this puff pastry. So today I'm going to be using this store-bought puff pastry because I don't feel like making any real puff pastry, but this is good. So I'm just going to use this. Okay, so I've just got this into a rectangle, that maybe about an 8 by 12 rectangle, and I'm just going to cut it right down the center. Try to do it fairly evenly. And well, it's not very even, but anyway, I'm going to cut it into 8 pieces. So here's some of that mincemeat from last year. And we're just going to spoon some of that into the center of each piece. Now this is kind of runny, so just be prepared to work quickly. And I want to pinch the seams. And then I'm just going to tuck these underneath. Damn it. Ugh. Okay, that's not going to work. So my plans have changed. I'm not going to do Eccles cake style. I'm just going to fold these over because it's not working. It's too runny and it's not letting me pinch the seams. So that's too frustrating. So let's just do this. And then I'm just going to fold these over. That will be easier. Ah! See, watch the edges. So I need these to stick. Otherwise, all my filling will come out in the oven. Okay, there we go. And we'll cut a slit on those later. Maybe I'll put the water on the sides now so I can work quickly. Pinch those together first. That's better. There. Okay, I'm just going to brush these with a little bit of cream. I know they're probably going to split open because they're starting to leak out right now. So it's probably going to be a big mess. But they'll probably taste good. Slits in the top, so hopefully the steam can escape out that way and not the sides. So there's my little mincemeat turnovers. They actually look more like sausage rolls, really. Hopefully they'll taste good though. Okay, these have cooled down. I'm going to put some powdered sugar over top. And I have to confess that I actually ate one already. And even though I don't really like mincemeat, these were so good. I think it's the puff pastry combo. Whoa. Okay, so there are my little turnovers, and again, I've already eaten one of these, and I don't normally like mincemeat, but these are frickin' good. They're really good. So that's what they look like on the inside. Some of the syrup leaked out and it made kind of like a candy on the bottom. It got a little too dark, but it's still really good. So thanks a lot for joining me in the kitchen today and coming along with me as I made my mincemeat for Christmas, and that's one thing checked off my list. I've got that done. So I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, please consider subscribing, and I'll see you again next time.